Most brands don't understand what I just said. What are you afraid to say to your audience? Because you tell them this, you're going to get canceled. That's people are going to watch. They either want to be able to relate to it in some way or think it's funny or entertaining or outlandish or whatever, or they want it to be like super vulnerable and like leaned in and like this is the conversation that we're having. The roadblock is embracing the change.
Welcome to Builders, the podcast for impact-driven leaders who are done carrying it all and ready to scale with clarity, strategy, and freedom. I'm your host, Alex Snider, strategic growth architect, creator of the CEO Recode, and second brain to leaders who are building brilliant companies without sacrificing every ounce of their time, energy, or sanity. Each episode, I sit down with bold leaders who've rebuilt, recalibrated, or redefined what it means to lead well and live well on their own terms. We talk messy pivots, leadership upgrades, tactical wins, and the deep personal work it takes to build a business that actually works for you. If you love the episode, make sure you follow, rate, and share it with another leader who's building big and wants to build smarter. And if you're listening and thinking, damn, I need someone in the guts of my business with me, let's talk. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth and define 2 to 3 high-impact shifts you can implement now to regain traction and build momentum. Now, let's dive in. Let's build it better. Welcome, Kate. Thank you so much for joining me today on Builders. I am excited to have the godmother of social media on the podcast. What an incredible moniker. As the founder of Social Media Pro, and the fact that you have that URL just tells me that you have been in the game for a while, that you are an OG. I cannot wait to dig into things. And as always, I would much prefer you introduce yourself, do yourself justice. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're building.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I really appreciate the invite always. It's a funny little nickname, isn't it? It could mean so many different things, especially now that I have been on the internet for almost 2 decades. I have the gray hair to prove it. But the reason they call me the godmother is because I had the very first viral, really big training for social media managers, right? So I've trained more than 30,000 social media professionals in my career through my online courses and speaking and, all of that. And so there's actually several very popular social media manager trainings, like how to start a social media manager business. And almost all of those, like the ones that have been around and sold for many years, were inspired by my trainings. So that's why they call me the godmother, because I am the person behind the people that you follow. And I joke with our mutual contact, or our mutual friend, Carla, who I think has also been on the podcast, that, I was an influencer before that was a word, before influencers were influencers, and now I prefer to not be. So kind of in my own words, I do 2 things. One is I still teach and train social media professionals, and now even more so content managers and directors of marketing in the online space, in the digital space, because I'm really passionate about, I got a little choked up there for a second. I actually am really passionate about passing the baton on to the next generation. And I was there in the beginning before systems and processes and best practices were in place. And I helped create those. And so I feel very called to help pass those on and give other people the same opportunities that I had when I was coming up. So that's one thing that I build, and the other thing that I build and have built over the years is my service provider business. So I can't really teach and train on how to get clients and how to service clients and how to build a social media team and what is working and not working on social media itself unless I am a practitioner. So I have an agency. It's called HTB Media. Nobody even knows that name because they know Social Media Pro or they know me. But HTB Media, #Blessed Media, is my agency, and we work we work with a lot of different types of brands, but mostly we work with really big influencers. I've been online forever, so I know a lot of the bigger names. We've worked with people. I've worked at Gore Financial, which is a huge company with Ryan Deiss and Perry Belcher from to the Traffic and Conversion Summit. Kayala Kanai, if you guys follow him, Russell Brunson and family. I'm sure everybody's, if you're watching this, the word ClickFunnels has come across your awareness at some point. And so these bigger gurus, they have a message, they're a speaker, they're an author, they're a coach, maybe they have a software, love a personal brand with a mission, with a message. And I do strategy, but one of the things I was telling you before this is that really where I fell in love later in my career was with operations. And so specifically inside of marketing operations, how does a founder, CEO, business owner, both, run their business, like in the spreadsheets, managing the team, product and research and development, all of those things, and be a full-time content creator at the same time. It's like my job and my mission for those clients to bridge that gap where they can look like a full-time content creator in their business without becoming one. So I have a team, and I also place people that I've trained because I get a lot of lead flow. So it's like I just have my hand in a lot of different things, but it really revolves around social media, content marketing, and I love teaching, training, mentoring, and building teams. And that's what I do in any way that people will let me.
I love that. I love what you said about strategy and operationalizing it, because for what you're describing, yeah, so many of us can learn and hear about it, but like how you do it, especially if you're earlier, if you don't have a team, like that is such a roadblock for so many people in taking the next step in their online presence, in their brand, in their business. And I personally just really love that because coming from strategy consulting, we have a bad rep for creating really expensive reports that go into drawers and don't get operationalized, don't get executed, don't actually move the needle and change things. And I was really fortunate to join a company that straddled that. So we were boutique, we were strategy, we were out competing with McKinsey, but we were also in our clients' businesses implementing. And so my foundation is strategy, operations, and leadership really hand in hand is the trifecta for growth. And so I just really wanted to highlight how incredible I think that perspective is, particularly for what you are doing as somebody who has struggled with, I need a presence and I run a business. I am not out here being a full-time content creator, nor do I want to be.
But it's so fun. I'm just kidding.
So enamored with that perspective. I think that skill set that you have is rare, or the way that you're able to communicate and really help people shift things is really rare. So I'm excited to dig into it. Before we get into the nitty gritty and the tactical, if you're listening, hang in. We are going to get there, I promise. And Kate has so much value that we'll never cover it all in one, but we're going to try. I do want to go back just a little bit and really understand what has shaped you. You've been in this industry for so long, which is so unique. How did you know you were meant to build businesses? Why this business? Why then? Why now?
Oh, that's such a great question. So I'm laughing because that was never my intention. The TLDR, I will say, is I always had an interest in business, marketing, storytelling. In college, I switched majors so many times: journalism, history, marketing, business. I ended up getting my degree in an area of passion because I was just so, interested, and I was just interested in too many things I couldn't decide. And so I my degree is in dance, and I was teaching ballet, and then ballet is not really a way to get rich. So I started taking on personal assistant projects And I became, back in 2003, 2004, I was a personal assistant in the network marketing space. So I had no idea at that time that I was like managing email lists and processing e-commerce transactions and, doing all of these things. So I really am like the reluctant entrepreneur. And I think it was part of like what I was thinking about when you were sharing about the tactical stuff, is that the way things happened for me was that I needed work and the internet was happening. So in order to get work, I started figuring it out. And there were people in the space that were well-known influencers, that it was more like just gurus or whatever back then, but like they were people that I thought were just teaching theory and they weren't actually doing things. And also I had a major case, and still sometimes do, of like imposter syndrome. So I just put my head down and learned like how to use all the applications, how I learned all the tactics, right? And I got super, super good at tactics. And then I built my way up to strategies. So when you ask me, there's even a place in about 6 years or so into my business where, as I mentioned, I kind of get half and half. I have an information product business, and then I have the service side of my business, like where 80% of my income was coming from, oh, it's on this side, the information product business. But I spent only 20% of my time there. 20% of my income was coming from my services business, but you can imagine I was spending like 80% of my time there, and I burned it all to the ground. My coach asked me, why are you doing this? What was your why? And I was like, oh, my why was I got on Twitter, started tweeting, and then I figured stuff out. And then people were like, can we give you money if you'll do this for us? Like people exactly born out of the same problem that you have. People were like, I am overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. Can I give you money? And I like money. So I would say yes. And then I would take their money. And then that meant I had to do stuff for them. So that's really like how my business was born. And then and I burned it to the ground at one point. I say that I fired all my clients, but actually I just matched them up with their social media manager, and it worked out really great for everybody. And so I've built from the ground up. I'm a Scorpio. I love the Phoenix rising. So just to be careful, I will burn something to the ground at some point, because I apparently like setting things on metaphorical fire. But so why I'm a builder? I mean, mostly I have built like out of necessity. Like I've had the dreams and ambitions to hit certain numbers and metrics in my business. I have a family that I contribute to financially above and beyond myself. And I want to retire early and live at the beach and drink margaritas. So honestly, like, I'm sorry, guys, I don't have the most inspiring, like, I want to save children that are starving or anything like that. I just want to make money, make it a little bit easier, be able to take care of people that I love, and check out from the grind when I feel like it, and kind of live the life that I want to live. So really, like, freedom is the main reason why, like, I build now. Freedom for myself, freedom for my family. Yeah, maybe that's the bigger woo-woo-y why, but
Freedom is the most common word used by people on
good.
this. I think you kind of started to, I want to talk about your leadership, but you kind of started down the path of what my leaders who build, we talk about wealthy leadership, right? And like, it just means success on your terms, right? So you have kind of already gone down that path. Is there anything else, if I were to ask you about, what does success on your terms mean for you, that you would want to add? Maybe trade-offs that you're no longer willing to make? I think the way you described it has been really, really profound, even though for you it maybe didn't feel that way, because I actually think that most entrepreneurs are problem solvers. And so you solved problems, and then your more personal problem was financially, I would like more. And so people were like, well, you could solve our problems.
If I solve their problems, it starts helping me solve mine. Yeah, I will tell you that to answer that question, there are a few other things. Like, for instance, so I started thinking about everything that I do in terms of an exchange of life force energy. And that happens around the time where potentially a person gets a kind of like wake up call from in the medical realm of your life. And that did happen to me about 4 years ago. And so all of my choices, I had made this pact myself at the beginning of 2020 prior to the pandemic that I was going to go all in for 5 years with the goal of retiring by 45. And so all of my decisions and everything revolved around that. Well, in the middle of that is when I get this like very serious diagnosis, and then it kind of shifts and changes everything. So when you asked about a couple things, the non-negotiables are that I am no longer willing to sacrifice like my personal health and happiness in exchange for currency. Like if everything is energy, my time is energy, my attention is energy, my services are energy, and my health is, I need energy in order to heal my body. Then if I have clients that I feel like are robbing me of time and it's not an adequate compensation for the currency that they're giving me, I mean, just the realization that I'm trading my life force energy and literally minutes on the clock every single day for dollars in the bank account. Like we could go down a whole nother thing about how society sucks and we should all just be able to, Burning Man's happening right now, like just live with currency free or whatever, but we don't. And so while I am trying to stack those bills and buy that Bitcoin so that I can exit the system, I also don't, it's more of the emotional toll. So even last night, I hope they don't see this, I tried to fire a client because not because they did anything other than like their messages to me and their energy was just not a positive contribution into my space. And so those are non-negotiables. I don't mind hard work. I don't mind hustle. I don't mind blah, blah, blah. I love my job, but I won't let people like in terms of business, I won't put up with clients that I'm not energetically aligned with because I'm doing this in my personal life too. Like I need my energy for healing my body. I don't have it for other people. The other thing that I will say in terms of leadership, lifestyle type stuff is that I did move to Playa del Carmen. That's how we met. We're neighbors. And I had been traveling since 2017, 2016 doing the digital nomad thing, like probably many people listening. But I did decide that I wanted to live my life now and not later. And because I have the ability to take my laptop wherever I want to live, I say I'm always on vacation, but I'm never on vacation because I'm always in cool places doing cool things, or not always, I'm being hyperbolic, but you know what I'm saying. Because I want to start moving towards that future life. I'm a big Dr. Joe Dispenza person. And so in my future life, I told you I'm living at the beach and I'm drinking margaritas. So it was like I started making those chess moves to like start like making that a reality. And while it works metaphysically for sure, I believe it also worked for myself to see like that I was making progress in the direction of moving towards my goals. So like moving to Playa was a big step because I was able to buy my condo, which means I don't have to pay rent anymore, which means check one thing, off the life list, meaning I have a place to live for the rest of my life and I never have to make another dollar. It just gets me that much closer to my bills. So I think one of my favorite books is Benjamin Hardy. I'm sorry, I realize I'm being long-winded, but one of my favorite books is Dr. Ben Hardy. And the title of the book, you don't even need to read it. It's called Be Your Future Self Now. And I realized, you realize at some point that you're living for these futures that you're trying to build and create. This is really important for builders, but like you also live now. So where's the way that you can start living in the now for what you're what you're building in the future? How can you actually start living it now? And I think that those are some of the moves that I've tried to make. They trick my brain into thinking I'm closer, and then I maybe I am even that much closer. So anyways.
Such a great tangible example, because I am a big believer in that as well. And it's funny because I think you and I have come to it from different sources, but I definitely got to a point where I was like, well, I want these things in my life, and I don't really believe in like working for some mythical retirement. Like that just didn't work. I was like, no, I want to live my life and build cool shit and help other people do that. But, you know, I think there's also an element of like, okay, well, if you live in one place and then you want to retire somewhere else, is all your community going to go with you? Like that's something that's occurred to me recently. I'm like, oh no, like, you know, when you're here, yeah, you have this condo that you own a block from the beach, like amazing. And you have an incredible community who are more or less aligned with a lot of the things that you just talked about, which means like we're not waiting to meet each other at 65 and see if maybe we can become friends. Like we're all here and we're all pushing for those values, those beliefs, those outcomes, which I think there is, you know, whether we're talking more, you know, mystical or energy or alternative science or not, like I just think evolutionarily even we know that we're herd animals, right? And we are influenced and tend to ascend and be pulled in the direction of those around us. And so I'm like, well, if you want to retire by this age and also live an incredible life before that, and I want to do that, and Carla wants to do that, and you know all the other people that were in the Golden Girls chat.
I was just thinking about Golden Girls as you were talking about community. And again, like, I don't know who's listening, but it's like an invite only group. I wanted to start a mastermind for Golden Girls. And actually, it was in my head until we went and hung out at Alex's house one night. And to be honest, it was just me and Carla in the group. And I'm a bit of I said, I'm like a bit of I jokingly say I'm a bit of an elitist. I'm a bit of a snob in that I'm being very protective with my energy. So I really had no intentions of inviting anybody else into this little teeny tiny Golden Girls group. But we went and hung out at Alex's house and I was like, oh my God, Alex is so cool. Like, so we started it. And now I was just talking to my sister about it the other day. It's like one woman at a time that like it just dawns on us like, oh, she'd be a great addition to the group. Oh, she'd be a great addition to the group. And for me, it's been awesome because I have been so you move to a new place. You generally kind of go through a phase where like you're open and you just try to meet as many people as possible. At least this was for me or in other places I've been. And then slowly I started realizing who do I actually resonate and align with. I don't know if this is helpful for people, but I have like my inner circle and then I have like my acquaintances, friends. Those are like my allies, you know, those are the people that like have your back. And then there's like just people that you meet that you're friends, that you're cool with, that you socialize with, that whatever. And then I have like my outer circle, which is like if I can avoid those people at all costs, you know, I will. And because it's more for me, it's like I'm now living life, like my voice is louder than anybody else's at this point. Like, what does Kate want? How does Kate feel? What makes sense for Kate? And it's a little bit selfish, but you know, when you lived most of your life as a people pleaser, like this is your redemption era. And so, yeah, like the being surrounded by this group of women that has now like populated in like one at a time. It's so great because I did this whole big connecting. I knew a bunch of people and then I retreated and I had two friends in town, you know, like I had all of two people and that got a little, you know, that gets a little old and boring. So now I have two friends and we have the Golden Girls and it's just, I love the energy of that group and I'm so glad that we started it. Even when I'm not in town, it's such a bright light in my day. So yeah, finding your community now that you can grow old with. And the Golden Girls is such a great example of that. Those women that lived in that house and that was the community that they chose. And it doesn't have to be women, it can be anybody, but like finding your community now and go where they are and be with them. Like, I love that you pointed that out. I think that's awesome.
I think so. And, you know, this is more of a tangent than I intended, but I think it's actually really vital. I will say, you know, the group we were just talking about, nobody in there is like a conformist. Like everybody thinks in their own way. It doesn't mean that we're all the same, but we really amplify and encourage each other to like have big goals, do things differently, which have like hard conversations. So I think they really are formative. And then I think about, like you said, it could be anybody, right? Like I have a, you know, kind of chosen family relationship with my neighbors. Like that is very unique and something I have never experienced in my life. And it is absolutely phenomenal. And again, really pushes me to be the best version of me. was at 6:15 this morning. I was at Run Club.
I know you have your fitness community too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think this is a good conversation for builders because I think we tend to build alone. Like we do, like usually when you're in your zone of genius, it's just you in a room with a computer. And so having community and entrepreneurs do have a very high rate of mental illness and or like suicide because it can be very, very isolating, especially when you're solving one of those problems that no one solves the way that you do. Like you don't really have a lot of people to like hang on to, and then you're working crazy hours and you're committed and blah, blah, blah. So like having that really awesome support system, I think is definitely like Carla has been like sometimes come to get me out of my house after I've been in there for 4 days and never left, and she's like, you're going outside. So I think it's important for builders.
And the intentionality, though, right? Because I also think one of the hard things with entrepreneurship and high achieving and building is the people that you grew up with likely don't understand you. Your family likely don't understand you. And so I always say, like, it's not that you have to cut them off, but the people who you are closest to should be people who understand what you are trying to achieve, either because they are also trying to achieve it or they already have. And it's literally the fastest path to success is to surround yourself with people who represent the identity and ideals that you are working towards. Evolutionarily, you almost cannot avoid moving in that direction. And if you spend your time around people who don't, because you grew up with them, because whatever, and those become your reference points, you will be swimming upstream your entire life. Is it doable? Yes. Is it energizing and in the best interest of like speed? Absolutely not. And I think this relates to business too, what you said about like the phases. I'm also a big boundaries person, and it's something I've really learned over the years. And in business and in my personal life, I am now extremely clear on what is aligned and what isn't, what is okay and what isn't. And yeah, there's communication, but because, too rigid boundaries, whole other podcast is just as bad as no boundaries. But, I think it's an experience thing. I think it's an age thing. And I do think your description of nomad, of like, well, when you are new somewhere, you just have to meet some people, right? Like, so you're just like trying. And that was one of the hardest things for me is I only really vibe with very few people. And so I would so often meet tons of people and I'd be like, okay, I'll just be kind of like on my own. And I have really special people in my life that I can talk to on Zoom calls and I'll be fine. I think you go through the same phase in business. I think there are phases in business that are yes phases, where you're like, I'll take any call, I'll meet anybody, even if it just gives me a chance to practice saying what I do. Like, you have to really be open and fill your calendar. And then I think you transition into no phases, where it's like the no is the power, because everything, like you said, everything that is not aligned to this is a no. And that makes your yeses so important and special and powerful that, again, you kind of can't help but succeed. So I think this was a tangent, but I love it. The show is meant for that. That like we can go.
Well, if we can just keep going. You reminded me, there's a book by Esther Perel called, oh my gosh, State of Affairs is coming to mind. What's the first one? Why can't I remember it right now? Mating in Captivity. And so it has nothing to do with business, but one of the biggest takeaways from that book was that we have expansion and contraction phases in our life, and it's just a bit like breathing. Sometimes you're breathing in and sometimes you're breathing out and you're expanding and contracting. And she gives the analogy of like a child that when you go to the playground, they like immediately run from their mom as fast as they can to like, thank you, reactions, to go run and play with their friends. And then they're like, play, 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 play. But all of a sudden something from their amygdala like shocks them and they stand up and they're like looking like, where's my mom? And then they'll run back and they'll give her a hug or whatever. And he talks about the phases of life are just about like prolonging the expansion phases, like longer and longer until the child goes off onto their own and to sustained expansion. But then we start just doing it in other ways. And you're right, like business is so much about yes, 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 open, 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 and then no, 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 close, close, close. And I think it's just kind of, I think it's just one of those universal truths, like, and maybe we don't see it because when I'm coaching new entrepreneurs, yes, I am telling them to say yes to all kinds of things that they wouldn't normally say yes to. And actually, yes is what got me where I am, is just by always being open to new opportunities.
Same.
But you're right. Now I'm old and cranky, and I'm and I'm a no. I'm a no to most things.
Us 40-year-olds are just like,
Because
no,
Simon
no,
Cowell, it's
thank
gonna
you.
be a no for me. It's gonna be a no.
I do love that. And I think that actually transitions kind of to what I wanted to ask you about, because that expansion and contraction, if you're aware of it, I think that's helpful. But I think it can be jarring for people as well around you. And so I think communication, if you know that you're shifting gears and there are people in your life, whether personally or professionally, that you're like, hey, this is shifting, and but like are important or are going to feel the impact, like communication can really help. And communication is something I always talk about as one of the skills that a leader needs to become extraordinary at, alongside boundaries, frankly. And so I'm wondering, we've talked a lot about kind of where you're at and who you're at, but if you think about your leadership, because you lead your team and then you help your clients lead their teams and train and hire. So you have a wealth of experience, not just in your industry as an expert, but as a leader. What were some of the core elements that shaped your leadership? Either, could be lessons, could be mentors, just what has kind of made you who you are today as a leader in business?
Um, I think for the most part, like in the beginning, probably for most people, I'm learning by observing other people, and then you model, and you get outcomes, and then you decide from there if that's the outcome that you wanted, and then you make adjustments to your behavior based on that. Um, so for me, coming up in the industry, I didn't have a lot of there weren't a lot of female leaders in the internet marketing space. I mean, there are now, but there are more now, but there's still all the people I mentioned to you, all my clients, those were all men. So I had a very and I'm a very intense person as well. So I had this very intense leadership style for a long time. Other things that influenced my leadership, though, was that when I was 19, I took my first immersive personal development class. The kind where before it, you think life is how it is, and then afterwards you realize that life is part of your perception and you're making it up and it's all a story and it's empty and meaningless. And right, like that. And I was so young, in my opinion. I mean, maybe people get this stuff now early, but I didn't know anyone who thought like that at that age. And so that journey of personal development, I was like, everyone says entrepreneurship is the best personal development vehicle. Like, if you want to sign up for personal development in life, become an entrepreneur, because your business will only grow to the extent that you are willing to grow and change. And so you definitely have to face your fears and look at your stuff and go to the shadows and blah, 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 all that fun stuff.
I'm just laughing
But
because I talk about this all the time.
yeah, but
Like,
I
this
started
is a
that
growth
part
phase.
first,
Yeah.
So those gurus, all of those gurus, the Tony Robbins and the Landmark Educations and the Joe Dispenzas and every single book, we are probably all junkies here. Like, I've read everybody's book. I go on all their, I listen to their podcasts. I go to all their seminars. And so applying, figuring out who I wanted to be and applying what I was learning in my personal world and taking it to my business world while I was still also parallel modeling the stuff that I saw. But now what's really shaped me more is kind of that giving back mentality and being the leader for my team that I would have wanted when I was younger. And what's beautiful is I have a team, most of them have been with me more than a decade. So I have 3 team members that have been with me a decade or more. And then others that have been with me for 5 and 6 years. And so it's actually cool because I get good feedback real time about like there's this one person and these couple of incidents in particular where I know that like this very direct masculine energy coming at me that I then pushed it on my team. I can emotionally, they were so triggering now that I remember those incidents, and it's my goal now to not do that. So as a leader, especially with my clients, my role is a bit like the exec team. Like I'm a C level or, a director level, wherever you want to put me, but basically smack dab in between the team and the CEO. And I actually view my role as the translator because I can receive that kind of direct, sometimes harsh, sometimes super critical energy that like the rest of the team, it might even have been their fuck up or whatever. But like I consider myself the person, it's my job to like receive that energy from them as feedback and then translate it into like the 8 different people on my team with the 8 different Myers-Briggs and the 8 different disc profiles and the 8 different childhood trauma issues. It's my job to like know all of that and translate what this one person said, because the way that they speak and communicate, my CEO or my client, that's their zone of genius. They're in their power. But not everybody on the team has the skin or the skills to receive that energy constructively. And so when they have me on the team, I was just texting last night with one of my former clients and he's like, I miss you so much. They're still they started over from scratch and they're trying to build their funnel. So he's had to step back into the director of marketing role or head of marketing. And, so we're not working together, but it's not in his zone of genius to understand that this person likes positive reinforcement and this person actually does work with a little bit of carroting and this person needs it wrapped in a hug and this person likes sarcastic jokes. That's how I get them to, or whatever it is. But as a leader, it's my job to know that on my team, know what helps them operate in their fullest capacity, but at the same time to know my CEO or my founder or whoever I'm working with and what is their zone of genius and not take it personally and try to not get triggered and just help them operate in their biggest capacity and be the conduit to make their visions come to life by these people. And I love that role. To me is so fulfilling. Is so fulfilling because I joke with one of my friends. I'm like, I don't want the A-list problems. I really don't want to be 1,000% the CEO, the final thing. I do in my own little world, but in terms of like big influencer brands, businesses, I don't want or need that responsibility in my life. I love my very amazing B-lister life. Maybe like I have a condo on the beach in Mexico, like hang out with like I love my B-list. Yeah, I love my, I have a nice crypto portfolio and I'm not complaining. So I love my B-lister life and I really don't want the extended responsibility of being responsible for like 100 people working in my company. That's not what I'm trying to build. I like my 5, 10, 12 team. That feels good for me. So I absolutely love this role, and I think it's so critical. And I think a lot of businesses, when you're growing, you don't have it yet. It's a luxury. I'm a luxury, or this role is a luxury, but I think it's so needed. And the feedback I get from the teams when I come in and the CEO gets removed to go be the CEO is just always like, they're just so glad. That transition in and of itself is really challenging and a whole nother conversation. But yeah, that's what's up with that.
I think what you highlighted is, again, another thing we could do a whole session on, which is that kind of like visionary versus integrator, operator, implementer type role as well. And, I think you and I are similar. We probably straddle it, but are like very strong on the integrator. And I'm the same way. I'm like, you need a user manual for every person on your team. Right?
Oh, that's such a great way to say it.
Right? Like the user manual for each person. It's like it should determine how you compensate them, how you give them feedback, how you motivate, like all of the things. right? And, anyways, all that way down to even the, when I talk about performance and development, I'm like, this is not a feedback system. This is a career planning. This is trajectory. This is retention, right? Like, but it's about knowing what's important, what someone wants, them knowing where they're going and, like how to get there. So big fan of that. And I think that is also, you mentioned earlier about the burnout, the isolation. There's so much data around, co-founders versus solopreneurs and how far they tend to get. And I'm a big proponent of getting the right support in your business. And I think in today's world, we're so fortunate that takes a multitude of forms that just previously were not conceivable, right? Like, I do a job that did not formally exist probably when I entered the job market 20 something years ago, right? As a, strategic leadership advisor, operational, coach, whatever. That like wasn't like in the way that I do, especially for the sizes of business. It didn't exist. And I think same for you. Obviously your
social media did not exist. Do we?
Yeah, social
Yeah.
media didn't exist, and I actually would love to hear your view on its transition. But even for if we were to just say like marketing, like the idea of like a fractional marketing lead and the ability to hire and remote and just all of the things that make what you do possible, right? Like that you can be this for your clients while having your own company, that is a thing that didn't really exist when we started working. It was like you had a job and maybe you were an entrepreneur with one or two businesses, but like the way that we help businesses, I just don't think people could conceive of it. And now there's fractional support, there's remote support, there's obviously a lot more tech support. There's just so many ways that are accessible that if you don't have to be $100 million a year business to have support, and I just think that's so amazing. I could wax lyrical all day, but let's dig in a little bit to social media a little bit more. I mean, you've been doing it for 17 years ish. What has changed as you've been leading it, learning it? What are the biggest trends and transitions?
Well, it's interesting because the energy of this like era that we're in right now with AI is very reminiscent of when I got started in 2006 with my first job online, or even back when I was doing social media, I didn't know it. But because of the reinvention of it all, at that point in time, like blogs were kind of a thing, and forums like AOL chat rooms or whatever were like a thing, and then MySpace came around. I had a business. One of my early businesses was selling MySpace layouts for $100. I would graphic design and code your layouts. There's just so many funny things. So much has changed, and it's changed so many times over. I feel like I should be the Madonna of social media just because of how many reinventions, it's been through and I've had to go through with them. But the most relevant thing, so it's kind of one of those things. I'll say two things. The first one is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. So things have radically changed. And at the same time, know, like, and trust has never changed. It was here before the internet. It will be here after the internet. So in terms of marketing, do people know me? Are they aware of me? Do they like me? Do they have an affinity for me? And do they trust me? Will they do business with me? If they don't know you, they can't do business with you. Or if they're not aware in some way either of you or of your company or the problem that your company, there's some level of awareness is required. Affinity is required. No one goes, I hate this thing, but I buy it anyway, or whatever. Like they go looking for another solution that they like better. Maybe, I guess I've heard people say like with a supplement or something like, I hate the way it tastes. But that's because we're masochists. When you're a biohacker, you're kind of a masochist. Man, excluding biohackers, the worse it is, the better, I guess, so maybe that they have an affinity for stuff they don't like. All right, anyways, and then the last is trust. Like they have to believe that you can solve the problem. They have to also trust that they are capable of solving the problem, and they have to trust that the mechanism that you have invented will also solve the problem in order to do it. So when people are looking at sales materials deciding to buy, like the person behind the product itself, will it work, and am I able to actually do this? You have to convince them and have them trust all of those things. That was before the internet. That is back in the, I don't know. I'm thinking of like Wild Wild West with the wagons and the whatever. Like if I'm buying a shovel from you to go digging for gold or whatever, I'm buying from the person that I know, like, and trust. That's how business was done, right? I mean, it was like your neighbor and he had a business and you liked him and you bought from him. Okay, enough of the really bad examples that makes me look stupid at history. Then, so that's how it has never changed, and it will never change. It doesn't matter what new platform comes out. I don't care whatever's after TikTok and after Snapchat and after. It's been the same always. The way you apply that tactic to the platform, how people get to know you, how they become to like you, and how you build that affinity and rapport, and then how the trust is developed is different on every platform, and where they move the button and it's up here and then it's down there or whatever. Like those things change. Technology speeds up. Things get fast. Well, back in my day, we couldn't even upload a video. We couldn't even upload photos. I remember when Twitter, which was a text messaging platform to start with, when we could now upload a photo to Twitter, it was revolutionary. So because technology has changed so much has changed, accessibility, and like the fact that this kind of used to be a gated thing where it's like social media strategy was like really gated, and now information is everywhere. So what mostly has changed that's not the same anymore is let's see, how do I want to say this? The most important thing right now that most people don't understand is that for a very long time, the marketing world talked about speaking to your audience. And I even saw somebody post today, talking to 100 people who are interested in what you serve is better than 1,000 or 10,000 people that aren't in your market. And while I understand where that's coming from, because I've said that 1,000 times myself in the past, it's not true anymore. We are in the era of more is more. And so the more people you talk to, the more awareness you get. And if it goes, they know you, they like you, they trust you, then the idea of more people knowing who you are is better. So more is better. And so this is the time where you don't just talk about what you do to who you serve. You do talk about who you are, what you think about life, really broadening, because if you want to go viral on the internet, which is the way you get awareness and reach these days, you have to talk about things that more people are interested in, and there's only a small number of people that are interested in this little thing that you are. But the way you find those people is by first talking about broader topics that more people are interested in, so that people either share your stuff and it goes viral that way, or they become keyboard warriors, and their comments are the fuel that then, right, like shares your post. So I think that that's a shift for entrepreneurs, because there's this idea of a personal brand and everything looks and feels attractive to my audience, and I don't share my views on religion, politics, controversial issues. I keep that to myself so I don't trigger or offend anyone. And then no one will see your posts. And so good luck. And because no one's sharing your post on the 4 tips and the 3 things and the number 1 myth and the blah, 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 blah. That is later. That's once somebody's already following you, that is follower content, and that's great for that. But you've got to break into the newsfeed by talking about the stuff that is uncomfortable, controversial. There's just so much polarizing stuff happening in the world. If you want someone to stop watching a video about whatever the news story of the day is, that's what you're competing with. And so you're competing for that attention. So your content needs to be, unfortunately, like emotionally charged and disruptive as well. And the amount of content that you have to put out is kind of the other big change because, back in my day, being a content creator was not a job. Like you didn't make money just making content all day unless you did it for another brand like I did. But now there's people, I tell founders all the time, you're trying to market your company and you think your competitor is the other brand that sells what you sell. Absolutely not. Your competition are the people that wake up with no job, building nothing except an audience on social media. And so they have all day to just pay attention to what's happening in the news feed, pick up on patterns and trends, look at their statistics, build on what worked yesterday, talk and engage with other people online, and make 8 pieces of content per day. And you wonder why you can't get any views. And you're doing one post a day or one podcast a week or whatever. So it's like the landscape has just changed in a way. I'm not saying I like it, trust me, I'm not saying I like it, but it has become very cutthroat and very challenging because the platforms pay for content. They don't pay for quality. I mean, what they deem as quality content, but they're not just paying for you to post the 4 tips. They pay what gets people to share and stay on the platforms. And that has changed and morphed the algorithm in ways that is
They're
challenging.
not marketing for you unless you're paying them to market for you, it sounds like, right?
Well, you can pay to play and boost your content to get into the feed. Or you can create viral content that's emotionally charged and polarizing.
Yeah, so it's like they're not marketing for you unless you're paying them. And that's either you're paying to boost or you're feeding whatever their algorithm preferences are with emotionally charged polarizing content. Like you're paying one way or the other. And so
Right. You're going to spend time or money, but it's going to cost you one way or the other. Yeah.
Love that. So you do, you mentioned yourself, you work for very large brands, very well recognized names. You spend a lot of time around business leaders and teams and, beyond understanding the trends and the changes in social media as a, ecosystem and industry and technology platform. Are there other common threads of big roadblocks that you see standing in the way of successfully building brands on social media?
Yeah, it actually piggybacks off of what we just said. So most brands don't understand what I just said, and it's uncomfortable, and so they're unwilling to embrace it. And then legacy brands like what I've mentioned have been successful historically, even potentially built a lot of the ecosystem that we live in now, but it doesn't work anymore. And so they're also resistant to change. And so if there's any advice that I can give, the person I think that has been on the cutting edge is not just open to change, but also embraces it, leans into it, and kind of calls it too, is Gary Vaynerchuk, and has been right on most of his calls. Other leaders hang out, wait for something to be proven before they lean into this new change. And if I could go back in the past and change things, I had done things that way myself. And it's partially because when you're a service provider and you're getting paid, you end up testing and trying a lot of stuff and it doesn't work and it ends up being a waste of time. And so you try to mitigate the risk of wasting time on things that don't work by only using best practices and stuff. But the double-edged sword of that is that you wait till things are really proven and working before you jump into trends. But so what I could say for most, that is the biggest roadblock operationally. And listen, it takes a lot of vulnerability to stop hiding behind the teaching content about how to that maybe you have some personality in, which is great. Like you be yourself, cool, but you're still not talking about yourself. You're still not sharing vulnerably. There's still not like you're still potentially hiding. So I have a good friend. I always give him a shout out on almost everything I do because he's the one that opened my eyes to this, and I don't want to pretend like I'm the expert. So besides like listening to Gary Vee and him feeding that into all of our brains, my friend Ryan McGinn really taught me the system for tactically implementing what I'm talking about with this virality stuff. And the way he does it is that he interviews his clients to get this content out of it. So it's very relaxed and conversational, very podcast-esque. But yet he's asking them either questions that are just things that are interesting about them, that are them as just a human, right? Like what's cool in their world? What are they into? What do they like? He has like videos that have gone viral about how he got 5 speeding tickets in 1 year and how many points he has on his driver's license or whatever, just because he's into like extreme stuff. He'll also ask like really vulnerable questions like, what are you afraid to say to your audience? Because if you tell them this, you're going to get canceled. Like let's go there, because that's people are going to watch. They either want to be able to relate to it in some way or think it's funny or entertaining or outlandish or whatever, or they want it to be like super vulnerable and like leaned in and like this is the conversation that we're having. And so yeah, the roadblock is embracing the change. And I'm sure that's in many places in business. You probably see it in other departments, but in marketing and in social media, it has always been the biggest. People are like, oh, I don't want to be a personal brand. I don't want to share about my stuff online. I don't want people knowing my life. I don't want to air my dirty laundry. I don't want people to know where my house is. It's unsafe, or whatever. And that's okay, but it's going to be really challenging to build a brand without it.
Yeah, I really hear what you're saying, and what comes up to my mind is this thing that was kind of a theme of our conversation is how much things have changed, right? It used to be that, you did what you did, and maybe 2 or 3 other people in your broad-ranging network community did that. And so people only really had so many choices, and they probably somehow got to know you better and whatever, But the reality is now you do what you do, and like anyone in the world that's online that does what you do is now a competitor, which means it's not 3 or 4 or 40, it's 40,000. And if someone isn't in your networking community and they're not running into you at the neighborhood barbecue or at the, business networking events, like how will they know who you are? Immediately, and I know it's fresh in my mind because they just did the big launch, is the Hormozis, right? Like they are masters at this, and what you described as that arc of learning, and to be fair, they also have arced and are very on trend, but I watched both of them do that, and Layla started posting a little bit after I did, and I really align with her. I think our focuses are very similar, and I think to a degree our styles of leadership are very similar. And it's been so fascinating because she started the way I did, which was like, here is value. Here is, let me have little clips that are like mini webinars. And she used to have instead of a whiteboard or slide, she would have papers and she would pull things off. And I was like, that's like me, right? Like I'm still paper and pen. Like I was like, I resonated with her because of that, because of who I am, and the stuff she's talking about speaks to me because it's what I talk about. But she didn't take off until she started talking about their marriage, about office dynamics, about the shit she gets from people, about her plastic surgery, about all of these things. And if you look at Alex does it as well. He's just a little bit earlier and a little bit more, I think, outspoken about who he is, which they both position themselves as extreme personalities, which they are. And they have leaned into that. And even in the book launch lead up, which was very heavy, they spent millions of dollars on specific book launch content. They did not stop, and if anything, they put out just more content overall, and proportionally, there were elements about them as people, them as a couple, those more polarizing, and not even always polarizing opinions, but they are, to a degree, humble people. But it was one of the first times I heard them talk about the cars they have, things that could make people not like them or feel separate. But kind of, again, it's like, well, you have to take that risk. And ages ago, I remember someone saying, you don't need to be liked by everybody. Nobody goes to war for vanilla ice cream. It's nobody's favorite flavor. But also nobody dislikes it. You want to be this unique flavor that lots of people don't like, but the people who like you, they will fight for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think correct me if I'm wrong.
No, no, I love it. And there's two things I love about it. Number one, Ryan's not allowed to say it because he's under NDA, but I'm not, is the change that you saw. He is the one that was behind
I
their
was going to ask you, is he
TikTok
the one
account.
interviewing Layla?
Yes. With the big caption, the big captions on the screen and the whole TikTok, like quote unquote, I won't say it. So Ryan didn't say it. Kate Buck Jr. said it. Be careful because he has an NDA. But I said it, and he's my friend, and I'm not under NDA. So there's that. But it is true. Like I was explaining today on a Q&A session that I did earlier. Yesterday, I was talking to a very successful direct response brand. They only really run ads, and they have like their first video ad that's going viral right now because somebody was explaining something and they used a trigger word in the beginning of the video. So now, like I said, you have these keyboard warriors coming and everybody's arguing about what this person said in the video. But then after I asked him, I said, "But is it converting? Like, are you getting sales?" That's the big question. And he was like, "Absolutely. Like, this is our number one sales mechanism in the whole company." And I said, "This makes so much sense because what happens is, like you're saying, you irritate the people that irritate you, but you attract the people that like you. And what's interesting is the ones that like you aren't in the there's two styles of them. One is that they are in the comments defending you. So now you're building those allies, like I was talking about earlier. And that's what a brand needs. It's allies. It's like army that's going to go to bat for you. Or they're lurkers and they just see what's happening, but then they go by. So there's this creator also that I love on TikTok, and he has very extremist opinions in his genre. And he teaches, his business is all about coaching, but he's gone viral talking about his opinions about things. But I guarantee you his business is blowing up with people buying from him because he's not afraid. And so now all of his content is no longer about how to become a coach or whatever it is that his business is about. It's all about that. Or let me give you another example. Have you met Sheila yet? Yes, you met Sheila. Okay. Always giving her a shout out as well. So she went viral on TikTok talking about what it is to be like 50 plus and single and childless. And it's something that she's passionate about. Like, you don't have to agree with it. You can like her, you can not like her. It doesn't matter. But she went viral talking about that. Well, what does she do? In her business, she's an AI marketing consultant. She's an entrepreneur. She does lots of various things. Now she has all this other attention from people that, do resonate with her, that are coming to her things. That's exactly what I talked about earlier. Now you have all this new awareness from people, and they like you because of this. But it is partially the people that don't like you are what help you get to the people that do like you. So this is why you kind of just have to have this thick skin. You have to just be willing to say whatever you're going to, whatever you think and feel. And what I really want people to take away from that is, like, you don't have to, by the way, you don't have to do any of this. But not we all, I'm being hyperbolic, but lots of people, you're envious when you see these creators in your feed that are getting all of this traction, right? Or getting all these views, or getting all these shares. Like, you want that for yourself in your business because you know it will help you build and be successful with this thing that you're really passionate about and that you really care about. But it's just the willingness and the vulnerability to do the same things that they're doing that is keeping you from doing it. I mean, there's this really great video. It's very old. It's called like 38 Years. You can find it on YouTube. And it's this old pastor, and he's doing this whole speech about 38 years. Like, something happened 38 years ago and you still haven't moved on, like in 38 years, you could, they left you 38 years ago, but in 38 years, you could have built a business, you could have blah, 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 but you've been stuck on it for 38 years, right? And I think about that a lot because I'll tell one on myself is that 14 years ago, I had a video that went like viral at the time, and it was about how social media management was a thing and you could make six figures getting paid to tweet and blah, blah, blah. And somebody commented that I was fat. Now, 15, 20 other people commented how proud they were and how awesome it was, and they congratulated me and blah, blah, blah. But who do I still remember? That one guy. And why do I not have a YouTube channel 14 years later? Because I don't, I'm trying to avoid more fat comments. So the thing is like, but those, there are other people defending me. And I mean, the whole thing, they were there like, it's okay that she's overweight, like leave her alone. Like, that's not what the video is about, blah, blah, blah. But the thing, so, it's like you guys, like it's like, I don't know what you got to do to psych yourself out and get vulnerable. Maybe go do some ayahuasca or something. Or just know that by choosing not to,
or Ryan to interview them.
yeah, exactly. Or, he's created some tools, blah, blah, blah. But like, just know that by choosing not to, baby step your way there. You don't have to try to cancel it yourself or whatever. But like, just know that by choosing not to, continue to take steps forward, to be more vulnerable, to be more authentic, to be more transparent, all the buzzwords, but to really get to where you're saying the truth and the heart of the matter and not being careful and not hiding. That energy is just felt. If you're trying to hide by being smart, no one's going to watch it. No one's going to watch it. So stop hiding. Stop hiding.
So really quickly, because I want to be conscious of time, what are you focusing on right now? If people are interested in learning more about you, is there a way to work with you? How can they find your content and reach you? And then we're going to run through just 5 rapid fire questions, but I want to make sure that I know you just recently did a workshop and this is going to probably come out in like a month. How can people get in touch or work with you or use your tools? Because I mean, I've seen your work, so I know how incredible it is. And I know there are people watching who are going to be curious about that. So let's make sure they get that, and then we'll jump into rapid fire.
Okay, so Social Media Pro is where all my courses live. They really are geared towards social media managers, strategists, and content managers, but they are open to founders as well. Just know that I teach also the business opportunity side of it, like I teach the how to get clients and how much to pay, but founders actually love that because now when you're going out shopping at some point for your vendors, you kind of have an idea of like, if I want a Kate, how much should I pay? And if I want one of Kate's students, how much should I pay? So you can reach out at Social Media Pro. You can follow me at Kate Buck Jr. I'm taking a hiatus for posting, but I do post occasionally, and that's probably the best way to reach out to me, like on Facebook or Instagram via DM. I do discovery calls with anybody. I do strategies for people, and at the end of the strategy, I do often place. I can help you matchmake you with one of my students who's been certified through my programs. Or sometimes if you're the right fit, I do occasionally take on clients myself, but otherwise, so we have DIY programs done with you, strategies and coaching, and done for you either by me or placement, and Social Media Pro or Kate Buck Jr. are the ways to get.
Beautiful. We will make sure to link all of those in the show notes so that people can get in touch with you. Kate, you've been so generous with your time. Will you give me 1 to 2 more minutes for rapid fire questions?
Absolutely, and I promise I'll be rapid.
Yes, this can be a word, it can be a phrase, it can be a statement. You can pass if you're just like, eh. So you are very welcome to do any and all of those. Ready?
Ready.
Okay. What's one decision that changed everything for you as a leader?
There was a moment in when I had to decide if I was going to protect my team or and stand up to my client, or continue to be aligned with my client to what I felt was the detriment of my team. And TBH, the first time I had the opportunity, I chose to align with my client, and I saw the impact it had on my team. And so about a month later, I had the same choice to make, and it will go down. It was legendary. I chose my team, and I did it in front of my client and the entire business on a Zoom call, and whoa, I will never go back. I will always choose to protect my team's time, energy, mental health, blah, 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 over the outcomes of the business after that.
Amazing. What does strategy feel like when you're doing it well?
Okay, it has a flow to it. It makes sense. It rings bells. You feel aligned. You feel that expansive, and you're in more of a space of possibility and opportunity. The roadblocks show up, but they don't show up like stopping. They show up, or they feel like opportunities or obstacles to like overcome, like fun or challenges that you're ready to take on. When you're in a strategy where you have this away feeling in your body, or it feels you have more problems than solutions, you're probably creating or building or working inside of a strategy that's not working.
Is there a book, podcast, or person that cracked something open for you?
My God,
I know,
so
for
many.
You, it might be hard to choose.
I've named so many on here. I don't know if I've given a shout out to DJD, Dr. Joe Dispenza, but he taught me how to love myself. And what I mean by that, rapid fire, is that there's this thing where people tell you that you don't love yourself, or that you whatever, but you're like, I'm cool, I'm smart, I'm whatever, I love myself. And then there's when you have a moment where you discover that you actually don't love yourself, because you don't know what that means. And it's different, I think, for everybody, the moment they cross through the threshold. And for me, like sometimes it is maybe like ayahuasca or something for people, but for me it was a moment in my first Dr. Joe Dispenza course, where I received this love like from the universe, and I felt what unconditional love felt like for the first time. And I realized whatever I thought love was before that was not this. And that literally changed me forever. And also I was like, oh, I can give this to myself. I don't have to go getting it from other people. So beautiful.
You may have already answered this one, but what is something you've said never again to in your business?
Well, I'm not building an assembly line. So I have a boutique agency that services high ticket clients. And I only keep like 3, 3 is my favorite number, my max number. And anytime I take on clients that I have to charge I just have to charge high ticket in order to make the kind of money I want to make, and blah, blah, blah. So never again is always like, I really want to help everybody. I really, 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 really do. I want everyone to be successful, but never again, never, 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 never. If they can't afford it or they're not ready for the investment, I'm not trying to take anybody's money that's not ready, and I'm not taking on a bunch of clients and stressing myself out. So I'm staying small, and I'm only working with people that are the right fit.
I think that's so important for people to understand that that's an option. If you had a free weekend and 0 obligations, how would you spend it?
I would walk over to the beach and just lay on it and not get up. I don't know. Yeah. I would just be in the sun, get my meditations in, just get some exercise, hang out with my Golden Girls mastermind. I love to be in the sun at the beach and doing healthy, positive things. That's what I do. That's what I do.
Amazing. Kate, thank you so much for sharing with us, for joining me today here on Builders.
I can't believe it. I've been watching your podcast, because we've been following each other, and I'm excited I'm going to see my own face on there sometime. That's really cool.
I can't wait. I'm so grateful. We covered so much. I think we're going to have you come back because
I would
we
love to.
opened up all these potential topics. So thank you again. And it's been such a pleasure.
Likewise. See ya. Bye, everybody.
That's a wrap for this episode of Builders, where we get real about what it actually takes to grow companies that perform without grinding you into the ground. If today's convo sparks something for you, here's what to do next. Follow the show, drop a 5-star review, and share it with someone else who's building big. Don't let it be lonely at the top. If you're ready for more clarity, more leadership freedom, and less of a duct tape and go growth vibe, let's connect. Book your free business breakdown call using the link in the show notes. In 30 minutes, I'll help you pinpoint where blockers in your time, team, or strategy are silently stalling your growth. Walk away with a personalized fix-it list that gives you the clarity you've been craving on what to shift now to regain traction and build momentum. For more tools, insights, and my no-fluff takes on leadership and scaling strategically, join the Builders Club, also linked in the show notes. You can also head over to leaderswhobuild.com, where you'll find all the links to peep my creds, see client wins, or just confirm that yes, I went to the gym today. Until next time, keep leading boldly, building smart, and living success on your terms.